sensational when she had 21 points and 12 rebounds in Indiana's game on Sunday. For the Sparks, Nneka Ogwumike, she's a former MVP. You notice her name in the middle. That's not her typical spot. Candace Parker is not playing tonight. In fact, the three tallest players on Los Angeles, Candace Parker, Jantel Lavender, and their rookie, the number 11 overall pick, Maria Vadiva, they're all out tonight. Parker with injury, Vadiva and Jantel Lavender are playing overseas still as they work their way back to the United States. So with the three tallest players out for Los Angeles, they were out-rebounded by 16 in their opener. They did get that win, though, an extremely impressive one over the Minnesota Lynx. It's the 1-0 Fever, I should say the 1-0 Sparks, the 0-2 Indiana Fever, and we're underway from the Fieldhouse. Thanks to you for watching us here on WNBA League Pass and live on Twitter. We will stay with you throughout the broadcast on these two channels. Here's the first look for Chelsea Gray. She dips in off the mark, and Achanwa has it for Indiana. Natalie Achanwa off of that 12-rebound game. That was a career high. She added 21 points to it as Erica Wheeler pulls up from straightaway off the mark, and Elena Beard pulls it down for Los Angeles. It's a short-handed Sparks team. They have just 9 players at their availability and essentially ran an 8-man rotation in their season opener. There's the ever-efficient Nneka Ogwumike, the MVP from 2 seasons ago. She gets the Sparks started. She had the most efficient season in league history just 2 seasons ago. And when she and Parker are healthy, that duo in the front court makes up one of the most dynamic, perhaps the most, in the league. That entry pass into Achanwa off the mark. Chelsea Gray has it for the Sparks, who hit the game winner back just the other night, and Gray finds Odyssey Sims. It's an early 4-0 start for the Sparks. Indiana, a team that is typically undersized. They were out-rebounded by 12 in their opener. That's the case for Los Angeles as well, as Wheeler dips in and puts Indiana on the board. Erica Wheeler at 11 points per game in her first 2 of the season. She's been trusted with the point guard role this season. Indiana trading Breon January for the number 8th overall pick. There's Ogwumike again, and 2 more for Nneka Ogwumike. Not just an efficient scorer, she racks up the rebounds, the assists, as good of an all-around player as there is in this league. She had 19 points and 9 rebounds in their win over Minnesota over the weekend. Backdoor pass, Dupree on the hesitation, and Candace Dupree has her first 2. Elena Beard at age 36. She won the WNBA's Defensive Player of the Year a season ago, as Odyssey Sims has 2 more. 4 early points for Odyssey Sims, who had a game-high 21 in that win over Minnesota. She's somebody that they're really going to rely heavily on in the early parts without Candace Parker, as Achanwa is left open. She's coming off her best offensive night as a pro in Washington on Sunday, as Gray weaves in, got the foul, and Chelsea Gray headed to the line. We'll catch Achanwa with that foul. These are 2 teams that are shorthanded heading into tonight. Indiana without Shanice Johnson, and that'll be the case for what Indiana hopes is only a little while longer. She tore her ACL back in July of last season. Gray's coming off her best season as a pro. Her 4th year in the WNBA, shot it at 83% from the foul line last season. And she's 2 for 2 to start things off tonight. The Sparks have made 4 of their first 5 shots, both from the line, and they've got an early 6-point lead here over Indiana. Guathmy struggling with her shot in games 1 and 2. Indiana will look to get her going, and an offensive foul. Well, now one ref pointed on Jasmine Guathmy, and they will say it's a moving screen, I believe. That's Natalie Sago making the call. They do catch Guathmy with the foul. Indiana still searching for their offensive identity. You'll likely see a lot of Kelsey Mitchell, although she is not in the starting lineup at least yet, as another foul going here against Achanwa, so she's picked up a couple early. And Odyssey Sims will go back to the line. This will bring up Kayla Alexander, her first year in Indiana after spending 5 in San Antonio. Sims is an 89% foul shooter. It's something Los Angeles does very well. And typically Indiana as well. They've struggled from the foul line in their first 2, but over the last handful of years, the Fever have been one of the best free throw shooting teams in the league. Sims, who had 21 in the opener, can't get that one to go, but she's got 5 early for the Sparks, who hold their largest lead of the first quarter, a 7-point advantage over Indiana. Wheeler on the pull-up. Gray pulled it down and threw it off of Alexander, so it'll go to Los Angeles. Well, it just shows the depth of a team like the Sparks, that they can be without one of the very best players in the league, Candace Parker, a 2-time MVP. And not only be without her, but excel. They got that win in Minneapolis over the weekend. That was a fully stocked Lynx team in Los Angeles. Missing arguably their best player came up with a win, but it's not just her. Jantel Lavender, their 6th woman, who averages about 10 points per game, as Beard finishes underneath. And then Maria Vadiva, who won a couple of picks after Victoria Vivians, who the Fever selected at 8. But Los Angeles having a lot of success without those key players here early tonight, and obviously in that opener. Wheeler looking for Guathmy underneath. She'll work on Gray. The step back, and Jasmine Guathmy, she needed that. She struggled from the field, just 15% in her first 2 games. Guathmy gets her first shot to fall. The experience difference on these 2 rosters when healthy is startling. 82 years of experience between the roster on Los Angeles, just 45 from Indiana. And there's Chelsea Gray as Los Angeles continues their torrid start. They are 6 of 7 from the floor on a 9-2 run. As Wheeler drives in, an open Mitchell, and an offensive foul, or did they get the block? Mitchell's shot was off the mark, and it's an offensive foul on Erica Wheeler. Eric Bruton informing us that there was no timeout called. The first dead ball under 5 minutes will signify that. But Brian Agler didn't take one. Pokey Chapman didn't take one, so we certainly won't take one here. You see Kelsey Mitchell check in for the first time. That's her on Odyssey Sims, Indiana's number 2 overall pick. Only Kelsey Plum had more points than her in the history of women's college basketball. She had 3,402, and coming off a really solid second game as Chelsea Gray continues to have success on the offensive end. She's got 6, and LA shooting it at 88% here midway through the first. Both Mitchells in for Indiana. Tiffany looking for her shot to go. That's off the mark. Tiffany Mitchell and Jasmine Guathmy, 2 of the 3 in the backcourt that start for Indiana, combined to make just 1 shot on 11 attempts out in Washington on Sunday. Despite Kelsey Mitchell's strong night, Natalie Achanwa's career night, Indiana was not able to overcome the Mystics. Ogumake knocks down a 3, and it's a terrific start for the Sparks. They've jumped out to a 20-6 lead. And Pokey Chapman will take a timeout. It's Los Angeles by 14 here early from the Fieldhouse. You're watching Indiana Fever basketball. Back inside the Fieldhouse, Los Angeles off to an early 20-6 lead. You're watching on WNBA League Pass. We see all 9,400 of you on Twitter. We're following the conversation there. And Jasmine Guathmy, the hesitation, she scores. And Jasmine Guathmy, a much-needed strong start here after She had struggled in games 1 and 2, 4 total points in those games, and Gwathmey has 4 here in the first quarter. Ogumake nearly lost the handle. Shot clock down inside of 10. As since Carson knocks down a 3. What a start it's been from the field for the Sparks. They're 9 of 10, 2 of 2 from the three-point line. Alexander turns. She can't get it to go, and Pondexter pulls it down. The 35-year-old guard out of Rutgers signed with Los Angeles, and it's more experience for Brian Agler and his squad as Ogumake finding more success down there in the post. And Los Angeles has grown that lead here to 17. It's a 12-2 run for the Sparks as they'll catch Odyssey Sims here on the foul. We're following the feed here live on Twitter. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, we will address those and have this be an interactive broadcast here. Such a terrific platform for these teams, the WNBA. We have over 10,000 of you watching here on Twitter, as well as those joining us on WNBA League Pass. We welcome you here to Indianapolis, where Los Angeles is off to a fantastic start. There's Kelsey Mitchell, who had 3 of 4 out there against Washington on Sunday. Pondexter. Good ball movement. Carson hit one from there earlier. This one won't fall. The rebound to Williams, and Raquana Williams headed to the line. And you see a frustrated Pokey Chapman there at the top of your screen. Indiana has struggled to get stops. That's just the second miss for the Sparks. But the Fever unable to keep Williams off the glass. And the 5'7" guard headed to the line. She knocks down her first. The 17th overall pick in 2012. Raquana Williams made her name just 1 year later when she scored 51 points for a game in Tulsa. There's Hinben Abdelkader into the game for the first time as well. She comes from her native Belgium. Alexander, a nice array of moves down low. She couldn't get it to go, and there's Ogumake with the rebound. Rebounds are 8-2 in favor of Los Angeles here early. They are missing their 3 tallest players. The Fever a bit undersized as well. Your first look at Victoria Vivians. There's the number 2 and number 8 pick, as she shares with Kelsey Mitchell, attacking the other way, and Kelsey Mitchell will go to the line. Pokey Chapman said you could see her confidence grow from games 1 to 2 in just 24 hours of difference. And she said, well, you look at the box score and you might notice a lot of the change coming on the offensive end from Mitchell, who hit 3 of her 4 3-pointers, had 16 points for Indiana. She said she saw a lot of growth on the defensive end, and from a coaching standpoint, that's the side that makes her so excited. She's confident Mitchell, that 3-point shot is going to fall for her at this level. She's got great ability to change speed, get inside the lane. It's the defensive side where she feels she has the most growth to go at this point. And thought Sunday afternoon's game in Washington was certainly a step in the right direction. Mitchell buries a pair. She had 3 of 5 from the foul line, but not surprisingly with her college numbers. Once she shoots more from there, her numbers will likely be at 80% and higher, as Samuelson couldn't get it off a moving screen on the Sparks. Erica McCall in for Indiana as well, the second-year pro out of Stanford. He's leaned on Nneka Ogumake from time to time. Here's Mitchell. She buries a 3. And Kelsey Mitchell, she provides you that potential from beyond the arc where even if it's her on the dribble and she's not necessarily in the position to shoot, that release is so quick and she has so much confidence in it. You take one more look here. Gets that shot up over Williams, and Kelsey Mitchell her first 3 here tonight. The future of Indiana likely hinging a lot on the performance of Kelsey Mitchell, who you talk to Pokey Chapman, Kelly Krauskopf, the brain trust for the Indiana Fever. They'll tell you she's a first-round draft pick in a lot of years. Asia Wilson was that premier of a prospect, and that's out of bounds off of the Sparks. And Indiana on the defensive end finally getting some continuity here. Los Angeles hit 9 of their first 10 shots. They made 1 of their last 4 and a pair of turnovers on the last couple possessions. Alexander, this is a tough matchup. A smaller Agumake, but a very good defender. And they'll catch Alexander on the moving screen for Indiana. That's the Fever's 4th turnover. They're turning it over at 12 times a game in their first 2. That's a number Pokey Chapman probably okay with. All coaches want that number down, but if you're closer to 10 than 15, you're typically in acceptable range. Carly Samuelson, Odyssey Sims, Cappy Pondexter, Elena Beard, and Essence Carson, the 5 on the floor for the Sparks. Pondexter in year 13 in the WNBA. Pondexter on the drive, and over McCall, Pondexter scores. Pondexter is likely going to be used as much for her veteran leadership as Ben Abdelkader responds for Indiana. She shows Pondexter has still plenty of step at age 35. So the Fever get a couple 3-point shots to fall. Trying to cut into that lead here late in the first quarter. Cross-court pass, Elena Beard. She's deadly from the corners. And a 30-point first for LA as Mitchell trying to rush on the other end. Vivian's the pull-up, back to McCall on the baseline. Sims off the Carson screen. She lofts it up. Good defense, and Sims rolls it in. And that'll cap off a tremendous offensive first half as Mitchell nearly threw it in. 13 of 16 for Los Angeles from the floor. That's 81%. And while the Fever catch their rhythm late in the first, it's LA 33, Indiana 16 after 1 from Bankers Live Fieldhouse on WNBA League Pass and live on Twitter. Back inside Bankers Live Fieldhouse, quarter number 2, Indiana Fever and Los Angeles Sparks. We welcome in our audience watching on WNBA League Pass and live on Twitter. We're monitoring the conversation there. If you have any questions, we will address them on air. It was a tremendous offensive first quarter for the Sparks at 81% from the floor. 9 points from the former MVP Neko Agumake. Indiana led by Kelsey Mitchell, who had 5. We told you we'd be watching the rebounding battle. It stands to reason it'll have a large impact here tonight. It's 9-3 Los Angeles in part because the Sparks only had 3 misses in their first 10 minutes. Mitchell had those 5 early points. This time works it into McCall. She can't get it to go. The second chance will fall. And Erica McCall on the assist for Mitchell. Carly Samuelson playing significant minutes. There's her. She was a camp invite last year for LA. Didn't make the team. But with the lack of roster depth here early, LA really relying on her. And there was Samuelson skying for the board. And they will say that Stephanie Mavunga got her with the body. Well, if you're curious the potential for the future of this Indiana franchise, you take one more look. There's Mavunga getting in on the body of Samuelson. This lineup on the floor, the Fever certainly hope will be here for the extended future. Number 2, number 8, and number 14 all on the board as Pondexter got to the rim and a late foul call going on Indiana. They'll get Mavunga again, so there's 2 fouls on the Fever rookie within a matter of moments. And another look. There is some contact there. The whistle came late. And Pondexter, an 80% foul shooter a year ago. She has 3. Certainly brought in for her veteran presence. A 2-time WNBA champion, 7-time All-Star. Was born in California, spoke very highly of the opportunity to come back and play what might be her final seasons in the state she was born in. And for Brian Agler, coach, she joked that she would play for at some point. Now has that opportunity at 35 years of age as Ben Abdelkader trapped in the corner, and they'll call a foul on Pondexter. One more look at the trap. Pondexter with the reach. Ben Abdelkader was undrafted. She's a rookie out of Belgium. Pokey Chapman and the staff really like her. They'll see her play some backup point. Another good three-point shooter if she can find her shot, and Mitchell got it poked away. A nice play by Odyssey Sims. She'll get it back, and Sims to the rim. Can't get it to go. The putback is up in there, and Nneka Ogwumike into double figures. She has 11. There's Ben Abdelkader from the corner. Hit one earlier, and she's got 6. Well, it's not the WNBA level, but in college you saw Mitchell and Vivians hit it at 40%, a very good number. As Pondexter off the mark, Ogwumike again. This one won't go, and Mitchell pulls it down. Between Mitchell, Vivians, and Ben Abdelkader as Mitchell steps into one. All 3 of those at lower levels shot it at over 40% from the three-point line. That's a really impressive number if you can do it at this level. So there's a lot of hope for Indiana as it relates to their perimeter shooting going forward. Ben Abdelkader's knocked down a couple. Kelsey Mitchell hit one earlier. Indiana at 43% early as Gray weaves in. Oh, what a move by Chelsea Gray. She took one to the head, and she'll go to the line for free throws. Gray's been there once. She knocked down a pair. Chelsea Gray, Odyssey Sims, and Nneka Ogwumike continue to do the damage. They have 24 of LA's 37. Fever used a brief 6-2 burst late in the first quarter. Otherwise, Los Angeles took control from the start. As Candace Dupree will come in, as will Natalie Achanwa. Kelsey Mitchell will take a rest after scoring 5 points in 7 minutes. The Sparks, their largest lead here tonight is 19. They hold an 18-point advantage midway through the second. Dupree backing in, has the size advantage. She fades off the back of the rim, and Carson pulls it down. Sims darts in right to the rim. She can't get it to go. Achanwa has it for Indiana, and Erica Wheeler back in the game looking to run for the Fever. Dupree. Williams, the pump fake, and Raquana Williams puts the Sparks up 20. Wheeler looking for Achanwa. It was a dangerous pass into traffic, and Williams pulls it down. Dupree had to reach in. She avoids the fast break, but the Fever is still struggling to get stops on the defensive end. The Sparks shooting 65% from the floor. Kelsey Mitchell had about a 2-minute rest. She'll come in for Ben Abdelkader. And it's only been 3 games, but you can see Pokey Chapman and a willingness to use her number 2 overall pick more as the confidence in the guard from Ohio State continues to grow. Ogwumike. Good ball movement to Sims. On Wheeler, lost the handle, and Dupree pulls it down. Sims caught it and threw it off of Mitchell. It'll go to Los Angeles, and what a play by Chelsea Gray, I should say, who came storming in to steal it and threw it back off at Tiffany Mitchell, and Los Angeles will keep possession. traveling called on Odyssey Sims. LA's doubled up Indiana on the glass 14-7. Again, a lot of that is a product of the fact that Indiana struggling to get stops, misses on the defensive end. But that rebounding category, something to watch all season long for the Fever. They're undersized, and they don't necessarily have to win it, but it can't be such a large hindrance as it was in game number 1. It has been here so far in the third game. Indiana actually did a really nice job in Washington, out-rebounded the Mystics by 12 in that loss. Mitchell bouncing for Achanwa. She got it poked away by Beard. WNBA's Defensive Player of the Year at age 36. Remains one of the toughest defenders. She held Maya Moore to just 11 points in their opener as Ogumake from the baseline. Nneka Ogumake now 6 of 7 from the field. She has 13 points. As Dupree looks for the answer. Beard had it poked away. Mitchell tried to rescue it. Tapped ahead by Achanwa. And a great play. That'll set up a Tiffany Mitchell layup. Some pressure in the defensive backcourt for Pokey Chapman's bunch. Gets Indiana a steal. It's the Sparks 43, the Fever 25. You're watching Indiana Fever basketball live on Twitter and WNBA League Pass. Fever and the Sparks here live on WNBA League Pass and on Twitter, taking your questions. Jeffrey and Jessica asking about the long-term status of Candace Parker. This is an Indiana Fever broadcast, so we are not around the Sparks day-to-day, but I would say it is a good sign while she is not in the building here tonight. It's probably a good sign that they're listing her as questionable, because as basketball injuries tend to go, if they're willing to list a player as questionable, it means that they are likely sooner rather than later. As Kelsey Mitchell knocks down a long two. Mitchell has 7. That'll lead all Indiana scores. Well, Pokey Chapman felt she was maybe a little hesitant. She had the wheels, the gears still turning in her opener, and completely to be expected. In games 2 and 3, Kelsey Mitchell has been very impressive. 7 points here early. There's Tiffany Mitchell. She was the number 8th overall pick back in 2015. And Dupree looking for Kelsey Mitchell. Ben Abdelkader couldn't save it. And it's Indiana's 9th turnover. LA already has 11 points off the Fever turnover. And Indiana, who averages 12 per game, is closing in on that number here in the first half. Sims goes back to Ogumake. The drive past Alexander. Good defense from Alexander for Indiana. Now Kelsey Mitchell. This is where she's at her strength in transition. Out to Tiffany. It's a 9-0 run for Indiana. They've trimmed the lead to 13. LA led by 22 midway through the second. Indiana getting that 3 ball to drop. Now 4 of 8 from the 3-point line. And Sims is bumped. That's one area where Indiana has had the advantage tonight. They're 4 of 8 from the 3-point line. The Sparks are 2 of 5. And you see Kelsey Mitchell, whether it's scoring or assisting, she's a bit of a combo guard, can play point guard or shooting guard, but you watch her in practice, you talk to the coaches, when she's in transition, that's her comfort zone. When things are in the half court and Indiana's running their sets and there's the set defense, that's where a lot of her learning is still coming. But when it's raw athleticism and instincts, Kelsey Mitchell shows why she's the number 2 overall pick. Mitchell has 7 and give her 9. Kelsey Mitchell now 3 of 6 from the floor, and this is the spark. If you're Indiana, no pun intended there, as Beard working on Tiffany Mitchell. If you're Indiana, it's Odyssey Sims. That won't go. You see Tiffany Mitchell, or Kelsey Mitchell, I should say, but Tiffany as well, playing like this as Dupree underneath got fouled, and Indiana has a chance to draw this back within 10. But when your number 2 overall draft pick is playing like this, it's very easy, if you're a Fever fan, to project to the future and say, okay, we've got her hopefully playing at a very high level. You saw what a player like Tamika Catchings could do, and that's certainly extremely lofty expectations. They call that foul on the floor. But it's clearly a star-driven league, and Indiana hopes they have one here in Kelsey Mitchell. Alexander, the fake on Agumake. She wanted the foul, didn't get it. As Gray cross-court to Beard. And Dupree looked like she got hit on the eye on her way down. And Elena Beard reaches in. That's Los Angeles' 4th. And Brian Agler will take a timeout. The Sparks led by as many as 22. The Fever have cut 10 off that. It's LA by 12 on League Pass and Twitter. Candace Dupree and the Indiana Fever have chopped 10 points off that second quarter deficit, which rose as high as 22. The Sparks shot 81% from the field in the first quarter. Here in the second, they're 3 of 14. That's 21%. So a stark difference, and clearly you are not going to shoot around 80% over the course of a game, but Indiana has been much improved on that end here in the second quarter. And Kelsey Mitchell, who has 9, can bring Indiana within 10 or even 9 with a 3. Alexander took one too many steps. Cappy Pondexter running points here for the Sparks. Pondexter will pull up and knock it down. Cappy Pondexter slowing the Fever run. Indiana used a 9-0 advantage as the Sparks jumped out as Mitchell tries to answer on the other end. That's a tough shot. Sparks jumped down to a 33-16 lead after one. The Fever saw that lead balloon into the early 20s. And they'll call Pondexter for shoving off Ben Abdelkader. If you're Pokey Chapman, there are lessons within the game here certainly that you're teaching. And she's likely lamenting that start. And Indiana putting themselves into a hole. You see the push by Pondexter. But that second quarter run, definitely a bright spot and probably a teaching point when they hit the locker room. Alexander, the fake, got Agumake into the air, and Alexander finishes. That's a tough assignment for her, even with the couple inch height advantage she has on Agumake, one of the very top defenders in the league. Essence Carson. And Tiffany Mitchell pulls it down. She's got 1 on 3. Mitchell charging ahead. Mitchell had it deflected. And in hindsight, Mitchell would have been better off bringing that one back. And Agumake cherry picking on the other end as an easy 2. Well, 2 potential points for Indiana on one end turn into an easy basket for the Sparks. Under a minute to play here until halftime. Stay with us at the half. We'll have halftime coverage here on Twitter. League pass. It falls into the hands of an awaiting Tiffany Mitchell. First half stats, highlights, all coming this direction. And we'll continue to take your questions and comments here live and on the Twitter feed. We're following along with all of you here on League Pass and on Twitter. Pondexter at the bigger Alexander, and Alexander with a swat. That shot clock was running down. Pondexter tried to force it, and Kayla Alexander, while she's 1 of 4 from the floor, she's shown a nice couple of moves. Had a basket turned away from traveling, and On the defensive end, Kayla Alexander protecting the rim. They'll have to get it in quickly into Ogumake, the fake and the score. And Nneka Ogumake, such poise underneath, especially for a player at 6'2". She plays larger than her frame, and it's been a fantastic first half for the 2016 MVP. She has 17 points on 8 of 10 shooting. As Indiana looks for one more basket here before the half, Mitchell from way outside. The Sparks led by as many as 22 in the first half. Indiana trimmed that lead down to 12. It's at 14 through 2. The Sparks 50, the Fever 36. Halftime coverage is coming up next on League Pass and on Twitter. What was a 33-16 first quarter lead, and they've been in control from the tip. Indiana has had their stretches, though, their bursts. They use a 9-0 run in that second quarter. And it'll be interesting to see what lineup Indiana comes out with. They started the game with Gwathmey Mitchell, that's Tiffany Mitchell, Candace Dupree, Natalie Achanwa, and Erica Wheeler. Achanwa, coming off that 21-point game, has not scored as she got a couple of fouls. That was not necessarily the most effective five on the floor, and so, yeah, you see Pokey Chapman change things up. Hinben Abdel-Kader coming in, as is Kelsey Mitchell. So a couple of players that did not start will start the third quarter here for Indiana, as Candace Dupree inbounds to the 22-year-old rookie for Indiana, Kelsey Mitchell, who gets the third quarter started. Indiana in those gold uniforms with blue numbers and blue trim. They're still searching for their first win. Mitchell bouncing for Dupree. The shot clock at 5. The Sparks just 2 of 8 from the three-point line. The only area they did not shoot it well in the first half. They made up for it with a 10 of 12 first half from the foul line. Carson fading and hitting. Essence Carson, who is starting in place of Candace Parker. They don't know exactly when Parker is coming back, but it leads you to believe it's coming fairly soon. Listed as questionable. She's not with the team. Mitchell from the corner. She knocks it down. Kelsey Mitchell now has 12. As she's been Indiana's brightest individual spot here tonight from the field house, is Indiana looking to keep that deficit within reach here in the third quarter. LA so much firepower, and there's Chelsea Gray. It'll be interesting to see how Pokey Chapman manages her lineups the rest of the season. She certainly gave the veterans, as Achanwa got Carson into the air, and Achanwa will go to the line. She certainly gave the veterans their first opportunity in the starting lineup, as Achanwa took a bit of a blow to the face, slow to get up. And they'll look at this here to see if this should be anything more than a common foul. Carson into the air. Well, you see Carson got the ball and her hand first. It was the follow-through that got Achanwa on the head. And while intent is not part of what they judge when they look at flagrant calls, typically if you make contact first with both the ball or the player outside of the shoulder and up area, you'll get the benefit of the doubt as the player. That play happens so quickly. It's one thing when you're watching these reviews. You watch them happen, and they're in slow-mo, and we're getting some great looks here from our crew. You have to remember how fast these plays happen in live action, and this is not easy to alter your positioning and keep your follow-through once it contacts the ball in the arm of Achanwa from grazing her face. It doesn't feel any better if you're Natalie Achanwa. As Eric Bruton and Randy Richardson take a look at the monitor. We'll see what they rule here, but on first glance, my guess is that they will give the benefit of the doubt on the foul and the contact from Essence Carson coming away from that shoulder area. Carson did get up into the air, and that is a vulnerable position to be if you're Achanwa, because that player is coming down, they're swiping at the ball, and you're almost at the mercy of the defender. And it's why this rule, as basketball has progressed at the professional level, they've gotten much more sensitive to contact above the shoulder, because this is a very vulnerable spot. You see Achanwa there, Carson coming in, but her hand hits the ball and plenty of the wrist of Achanwa first. A foul is definitely the correct call, but her elbow didn't make contact. Her hand got Achanwa on the head on the follow-through. As we await the call, as Richardson takes off the headsets, Natalie Sago is with them as well, and the trio will discuss. Again, intent is not part of this rule, and that's the one area. And it looks like Eric Bruton and his staff will keep it as a common foul, and I think that's the right call. So Natalie Achanwa will go to the line, and she's coming off her best day as a pro, so it was unreasonable to expect a similar night here tonight, but Achanwa looking for her first points of the night. She picked up a couple early fouls. She's played just 7 minutes. In fact, Wheeler, Achanwa, and Gwathmey each playing just 6 minutes in that first half, as Achanwa hits her 2 free throws. And maybe not surprising from Gwathmey, as she's been in and out of the rotation in her first year with the Fever, and Achanwa's been in foul trouble. Erica Wheeler at the point guard position, only playing 7 minutes here so far, as Sims knocks down the long 2. And those are shots where you talk about it from an analytics perspective. That long 2 is not necessarily the highest percentage shot, if you will. But if you're Los Angeles, these are shots that you've got good players, they're getting open, and they can knock down with ease. So while it's maybe not the most efficient shot on the floor, if you're LA, you've got an open look from good shooters. You can see why they've been so effective from that spot here so far tonight. A blocking foul called on the Sparks. It's their second. Elena Beard called for the block. Gets her third. Mitchell has 11. Ben Abdelkader knocking down a couple of threes in that first half. Shot clock down to 5. She'll get by Carson, and Agumake there to protect the rim again, and good defense from Nneka Agumake as Chelsea Gray comes out with it, attacking Achanwa, hesitates and rimmed it out. Dupree has it for the Fever. Abdelkader draws the double team. Mitchell left alone. Tiffany Mitchell, who had 11 points total in her first 2 games, has 10 here tonight. A much-needed rebound game for her, and an offensive foul as Carson's plows over Hind Ben Abdelkader. Essence Carson called for her second foul. It is an offensive foul on LA, who has 2 in the first half. Indiana has still not committed a foul here in the third quarter. Dupree with just 4 in that first half. The step back. We saw this a little bit from her in game number 1 from the Fieldhouse. She struggled in her first 3 quarters, really got going in the fourth. Indiana has this lead cut down to 11. Carson at the smaller Mitchell. She'll loft it up. Carson again. And a third chance opportunity, as you can see Pokey Chapman in frustration. Goes back to her side of the bench. This is tough if you're Indiana, who struggled to get stops. Could have been a travel on Sims, not called. Instead, Carson can't get it to go. So Indiana gets 3 stops, and here comes Kelsey Mitchell, a chance to cut it into single digits. Kelsey Mitchell. She wanted that one, and that's The kind of shot where for 90% of the WNBA it's not a good look, but when you've got a player, and maybe you could argue in game number 3 as a rookie it's not the best look, but you see the very best shooters in the NBA, the WNBA, they can make that look fall. And it's such a weapon in transition because you're so used to, and it's so instinctual as a defender to head back toward the basket and try to defend your own rim, that pull-up 3 is a real weapon. Mitchell trying to pull Indiana within 8. Here's Pondexter on the other end. LA stays cold here in the third. They're at 50% now on the night. Remember, they were at 81% after the first. Achanwa, good position. And Indiana within single digits for the first time since the first quarter. Ogumake, shot clock down to 8. Gray fakes. Mitchell off to Dupree. Oh, it was a good look. Achan with the offensive rebound. And Ben Abdelkader couldn't get it to go. This crowd is looking anxiously, been awaiting that moment to stand up and provide the hometown team with a bit of a boost, and that could have brought it for Indiana, looking to bring the game within 6. They've trailed by as many as 22. Pondexter, pick and roll. Ogumake. Good defense from Dupree and better offense. Ogumake has 19. Mitchell darting into the triple team, a lot of contact, and a blocking foul called. They will get Chelsea Gray, and I think she was in the restricted area. And Pokey Chapman will take a timeout. Her team got within single digits, and Kelsey Mitchell draws the foul midway through the third here from the fieldhouse. 58-47 is the score midway through the third. They were looking at this play. A 2 for Kelsey Mitchell will stay at 2. See her left foot on the line there. Kelsey Mitchell has 11, and she goes to the line to try to add to it. After the first quarter, Los Angeles was at 81%. Since then, a much more acceptable 43% if you're the Fever. That percentage down to 50. And Indiana, now from a shooting perspective, shooting just 5% worse than the Sparks. They're on a 9-2 run, and Indiana back within single digits. Ogumake had it poked away by Alexander. Pondexter the runner. Bounces around. Alexander has it for Indiana, and the Fever a chance to cut closer into this lead as Kelsey Mitchell goes into the lane, and Kelsey Mitchell now has 15, and Indiana's within 7. Ogumake, they go back to their bread and butter, and she is so dominant down on that block. Nneka Ogumake, not just with 21 points, she's done that on 10 of 12 shooting. She's the league's most efficient player, and she has been remarkably so here tonight. Dupree has the younger, the smaller Samuelson on her, trying to take advantage. Gwathmey with a shot clock at 2. Some contact that wasn't called, and she didn't get it off in time. The Indiana bench asking for a foul call. Jasmine Gwathmey felt there was some contact. Gwathmey, who started, has played 8 minutes. Erica Wheeler, she has played 7. As that foul going against Gwathmey for Indiana. It's Gwathmey's second. Erica Wheeler has played just 7 minutes so far. She's not been in foul trouble. No injury reports. As Pokey Chapman has decided to go with the hot hand, which has been Kelsey Mitchell and Hinben Abdelkader. Shot clock down to 3. And LA just their 7th turnover, but Indiana on the defensive end, they're showing a lot more intensity as Erica McCall will come in. Wathme Dupree take a brief rest. Victoria Vivians is back in as well. And there's Erica Wheeler. Alexander shuffled her feet. It was Agumake who pulled the chair out from underneath her. And it's so fun to watch a cerebral player with the ability of Nneka Agumake. Takes the step back. And Alexander called for steps. Samuelson. You're fine if you're Indiana and you get that look as Erica Wheeler looks to push. Indiana's been within 7 here in the third. Wheeler bounces. Alexander. McCall goes back up and Samuelson comes up with a block. Off to Sims, and Sims finishes to put LA back up 11. It was a 17-point deficit after 1, a 14-point deficit after 2. Indiana has had it within single digits. McCall on Samuelson through the double team and a foul going against Agumake. Agumake giving Samuelson the help down low. Ideally, Los Angeles, while they certainly like Carly Samuelson, a rookie out of Stanford, went undrafted. These are tough moments to throw her into her first career game. She's not only playing her first minutes, but playing in the rotation after not making the roster, after getting a training camp invite. McCall hits the first. We're following you here live on Twitter. And the discussion. A lot of talk, as you would imagine, on Kelsey Mitchell, who has 15 points, leading all Indiana scores. Curtis wondering if Mitchell will start game number 4 for Indiana. You'd have to imagine a distinct possibility. She's been terrific. 23 minutes. She and Candace Dupree have played the most minutes for any player on the floor not named Nneka Agumake. Sims around Alexander. Good defense from Kayla. And here's Mitchell pulling down the rebound. Wheeler attacking hard through Agumake, threw it long. Pondexter comes down with it, and now LA looks to run. Sims leaves it for Agumake, and they'll call Kelsey Mitchell on the reach-in foul. It'll send Nneka Agumake to the line. That's the third on Indiana as you see Mitchell get a piece on the elbow. That's Mitchell's third. Agumake, an 87% foul shooter a year ago. Her MVP season, she shot 67% from the floor, 62% from 3, and 87% from the foul line. You could take away 10% from all of those numbers, and it would be a remarkable season. McCall turns, left it short. Samuelson pulls it down. Los Angeles a chance to play 2 for 1 if they want it. Fever forcing LA later in the shot clock, and there's a big 3 coming from Raquana Williams. And that'll balloon the LA lead back to 14. Indiana with much better defense, but Raquana Williams, a spark plug at 5'7". Not known as a three-point shooter, but can knock it down with little space. Mitchell off the screen, draws the double, has to hoist it up. And that'll take us through 3. It was a promising third for a while for Indiana. They trimmed a 14-point deficit down to 7. They trailed by 14 after 2. 14's the deficit after 3 on League Pass and Twitter. The Sparks closed the third quarter on a 9-2 run, led by none other, and not surprising, Nneka Ogwumike. She has 23 points through 3 quarters. The Fever trimmed the lead down to 7. It was at 22 at one point, and I think Pokey Chapman, regardless of how this one turns out, will have a lot of positives to take in the second and the third quarters especially. And we'll see what happens here in the fourth. Still 10 minutes left to go. Her team has shown a lot of fight. That early hole they dug themselves in. Look, even without Candace Parker, it's extremely difficult to spot the team who was a win away from a WNBA championship, the 2016 WNBA champion. You spot a team like that, 20 points even without one of their top 2 players, and you are putting yourselves in quite a hole. And Indiana has fought admirably since then. It's still 9:40 left to go here. To get it from 22 to 7 is certainly a bright point. I think Pokey Chapman will recognize that regardless of result here. Achanwa faces the double. Mitchell off the screen. Back to Dupree. Abdelkader's hit a couple. And a loose ball foul will go against Essence Carson as she and Achanwa were battling down low. See Carson, and not clearly intending to get in that position, but whenever you get a player in that kind of spot, an awkward spot for Natalie Achanwa, unable to come down. A bit of a dangerous position. That call is going to go Achanwa's way. Indiana looking for Dupree to get going. She has 6. Mitchell on the fake, the pull-up. And now Sims into Ogwumike, the smaller Mitchell on her, and they'll call a foul on Tiffany Mitchell. That's Indiana's first, Mitchell's first. It's been a low-scoring, a competitive game out in Washington tonight. The Mystics and Aces tied at 44. Perhaps you are flipping between those 2 games. A fantastic outlet here for the WNBA on Twitter. We're keeping up with the conversation here throughout the night, following your tweets. As Indiana, if they've got to run in them, it needs to come now, and it looks to start with Mitchell. She'll try it again. Kelsey Mitchell with 15 points on the night, had a couple good looks there. Pondexter off the screen, the long 2. Achanwa has it. Mitchell looking to attack. Sims reaches in and is called with the foul. She got Mitchell on the chin. Didn't like the call, but clearly got a piece of the Fever rookie. Erica Wheeler will check back in. Pokey Chapman has not been afraid to go to her bench. As Kelsey Mitchell has played 26 minutes, Ben Abdelkader 21, Kayla Alexander 15. As Wheeler drives in and gets it to go. A nice shot from Erica Wheeler. Wheeler has 4. For Indiana to mount this comeback, it's got to start on this side of the floor, where they've been much better since the first quarter. Gray on the pull-up. Wheeler off the screen, attacking Ogwumike, got it to Achanwa, and Achanwa will go to the line. Indiana's been much more efficient as well on the offensive end. At 39% on the night, but they started extremely slowly. That's the 4th on Elena Beard. Ajonwa, a good foul shooter, hits the first. At 70% from the foul line a year ago. There's no coach in the WNBA where you get more out of watching during a game than Pokey Chapman. She is so animated. In fact, I'm sure you can pick up some of the things she's yelling. Her excitement and frustration all kind of mixed into one here. As Indiana has opened the season 0-2, and after that Chicago game, and we'll see Chicago, they're 2-0 by the way, Sims called for the push-off. The schedule makers did Indiana no favors, at least early on in the schedule. It all evens out as the season comes to a completion, and that will happen in mid-late April, or mid-late August, I should say. But Indiana with a back-to-back to start off the season. LA tonight, they've got Washington in the building on Thursday. Wheeler swarmed by Sims. Looking to get it back to single digits as Vivians is tied up and Nneka Ogwumike comes up with a steal. And now Sims on the drive right to the rim, and Odyssey Sims, she has 14. Well, Sims will likely feature a key role again for LA. She's in year 2 with the Sparks, but not asked to do quite as much last season, around 10 points per game, and with Parker out, she has excelled in her first 2 games so far. Mitchell steps in. That shot was falling in the first half, not in the second half for Tiffany Mitchell. Remember, this is essentially an 8-man rotation the Sparks are running with. 2 of their top players are out, and Ogwumike now 11 for 13 from the field. Ogwumike has 25. Pokey Chapman will take a timeout as she's seen LA's lead go back to 14. It's the Sparks 71, the Fever 57 on League Pass and Twitter. Los Angeles Sparks, Nneka Ogwumike showing why she was a former MVP of this league. She has done it all tonight. She has 25 points. We're following your conversation on Twitter. Travis Lund saying, I keep looking at Nneka's field goal percentage like there has to be a glitch in the matrix, but she's just been that spectacular tonight, and she certainly has. Ogwumike so efficient, so effective. Indiana trailing by 14. Still time to cut into it. Under 6 minutes left to play. And Tiffany Mitchell, she's getting good looks. She has to like the looks she's getting. They're just not falling here in the second half. But bigger picture, if you're Mitchell, that's been part of her struggle when she has in her first couple of seasons, is finding those quality looks because she's such a good shooter. And there's Mitchell on the defensive end. Brian Agler getting a timeout before Indiana could get the jump ball. So LA will take a timeout. (71-57). And we are going to keep this as a 20-second timeout, so it's going to stay here inside Bankers Life Fieldhouse, so we will stay with you. Next up for Indiana is Thursday. They're back here inside Bankers Life Fieldhouse. They take on Washington. It'll be the second time they played the Mystics in their first 4 games of the season. Tickets available at feverbasketball.com or by visiting the Bankers Life box office. You can see it, I'm sure, from time to time when we hit the north goal in the building. The Family Fun Zone behind one of the baskets here at the Fieldhouse. They've taken out the end zone seats and put in the Family Fun Zone, which is presented by Peyton Manning Children's Hospital. Bring your kids down to a game. There's a good look at it. It's empty now because during the game you have to be in the stands and watch, but pregame and halftime you can take your kids down there totally free, play around in the inflatable playground, and check out some WNBA basketball in between those times. If you bring your kids on Friday or Saturday, your kids will eat free as well. Alexander spins, drew the foul. The Sparks have had the moxie of a championship contender. They were focused from the get-go, had the lead to 22 points in the second quarter. As Indiana cut into that lead. They were the better team, were the Fever, for a large part of the second and the third quarter. Getting the lead down to 7. Responding to runs like that are what championship teams do, and Brian Agler knows plenty about that. Brought his team there in 2016. The Seattle Storm in 2010. And this response here from the Sparks, those 2 free throws pull it back to 14. A 9-2 run to close out the third might be the story tonight. Odyssey Sims got free underneath and was bumped by Ben Abdelkader. Ben Abdelkader has gotten plenty of experience in the early part of her career. 21 minutes tonight. She is a rookie, a 22-year-old out of Belgium. Played a year at Cal in 2013-2014. A 17 points per game scorer over in Turkey. That's one of the very top women's leagues in the world as Mitchell weaves in. Achanwa on the fake. Achanwa with the finish. They'll call an offensive foul on Natalie Achanwa. And you can see her frustration. She had a tough start picking up a couple of fouls she didn't feel she deserved. And Achanwa showing her frustration, doing everything she can to avoid that technical. You could see with the free hand there. Did get Ogumake across the face. And now an offensive foul going right back against the Sparks. LA used a 9-2 run to close that third. A 9-2 run currently has the lead back to 17. Kelsey Mitchell with 15 points tonight, now on 5 of 8 shooting. In fact, 1 of 8 from the three-point line. So she's taken some shots to get there, but with younger players, it's very often the eye test versus the box score as she'll fire a 3 and hit. So right on cue, Kelsey Mitchell hits her second. She's certainly passed that eye test tonight. 18 points, 8 more than any other Fever player. Samuelson. First points for Samuelson, who knocked down a couple of shots in Minnesota in the opener. Dupree has 6 over Gray. Gray to the rim, kick out. They will give Williams 3 there, so the lead just like that. Back up to 20 as Mitchell dances in. 12 for Tiffany Mitchell, 18 for Kelsey Mitchell. Ogumake with a game-high 25. Odyssey Sims has 17. There's Samuelson on the give and go. Williams will have to heave. And Achanwa has it for the Fever. 3 minutes left to go in game number 3 for Indiana. Mitchell hands for Achanwa. Mitchell from the corner. Next up for Los Angeles, Sunday, they'll take on the New York Liberty. Their first home game. That's a 7 o'clock tip. Victoria Vivians and Erica McCall will come in. A tough night for Candace Dupree, who had 6. And a timeout on the floor. It's the Sparks by 18. 82-64. The Sparks lead the Fever late here in the fourth quarter. Thanks for watching us all night long here live on Twitter and WNBA League Pass. We've been enjoying the conversation chatting with you, answering questions on a WNBA 2018 season that for the Fever will unfortunately fall to an 0-3 start as Tiffany Mitchell scores. But when you look big picture for Indiana, Kelsey Mitchell is a huge part of what's going to happen. Tiffany Mitchell as well, just in year 3. You forget sometimes how young Tiffany is. She's just 23 years old, in fact, only a year older right now than Kelsey is. As Pondexter got away with shuffling her feet. Cappy Pondexter has 6. That duo, the Mitchells, have 32. It's easily their best combined game. Kelsey had 16 against Washington. Tiffany did not score. It's been an interesting schedule for the Fever. They play on Thursday, then on Saturday. It'll be 5 games in 8 days to open up the season. And then they'll have 6 straight days without a game before they pick things up back on June 2nd. If you're in Indianapolis, that'll be our first Fox Sports Indiana game of the season. Debbie Antonelli will be with me on the call. Mitchell pulled down the rebound, threw it back to Carson. The Sparks plenty content with running some clock at this point. I'd love to have you in the building for a Fever game. If you are in the area, feverbasketball.com, the Bankers Life box office. If you can't make one of those weekend deals, if you can find a game on a Tuesday like tonight, it's 2-for-1 Tuesday. Tickets are half off. The rookie Victoria Vivians has played 13 minutes, has not scored here tonight. There's Stephanie Mavunga, who's played 5 minutes, also not scored. That's the 5th on the Sparks, so it'll mean free throws for Mavunga. 2013 Miss Indiana basketball out of Brownsburg. Mavunga hits the first. To speak to her, she's so well-spoken, extremely intelligent. You can see that translate to the basketball court. A cerebral player. North Carolina and then Ohio State. So she was a teammate of Kelsey Mitchell for their last 2 years. And Pokey Chapman certainly happy to pluck from the Ohio State pipeline, grab their top couple of players. One more possession here likely for Los Angeles, who at 50% an effective offensive night. Samuelson hits a 3. There's a foul on the play. And they will count the shot. Basket's good and a loose ball foul on the Sparks. So that'll likely end their night at 51%. And after shooting 81% in that first quarter, Indiana was certainly better on the defensive end. But the lesson here from Pokey Chapman, you have to like the fight if you're the Fever to cut that 22-point lead down to 7. But you can't give teams with the skill set of L.A. that kind of lead. You really can't give anybody that kind of lead, but nearly impossible to make a comeback of that magnitude when you're playing the 2016 WNBA champion. Mitchell's going to end up with 20 if she can hit this one. She's 5 of 5 from the line. And hits. That's really promising if you're Indiana. 36 points in the last 2 games for Kelsey Mitchell. But on the offensive end, the Fever shoot it at 39%. Made all 16 free throws tonight, 6 of 19 from the three-point line. The Sparks jump out by 22 in the first half, and they hold on for a 17-point win here from the Fieldhouse. LA to 2-0, Indiana to 0-3 on the season. We thank all of you that have been watching us on League Pass and on Twitter. We'll take a short break and wrap things up here from the Fieldhouse. You've been watching Fever Basketball on the WNBA on League Pass and Twitter.